All right. Good morning, folks. You may have seen me last year because I've had a number of you who've come up to me at some point this morning and asked why I'm not wearing a magician's outfit like I was last year. It's hard to top that one, quite honestly. I am wearing Cookie Monster shoes, though, if you can see closely. I did get these in celebration of cookie deprecation, but that didn't really happen, so I got to find excuses to wear them. But the reason I'm wearing them today is because last night I was over at the Lincoln Center and I discovered Sesame Street is a real thing. It's a real place. It's just over there by the Lincoln Center. And I think so much about the future and how Elmo is really going to lead us into the future. No, I think a lot about the orchestration moment, but I think a lot about Sesame Street because they named it that in 2019. So indulge me for a moment because we're going to go into the Wayback Machine. I'm going to revisit what happened in 2019. It was honestly, for many of us, probably the last time we were truly happy. But 2019 was 7 years ago, and there were a few things that happened. One was, and this hurts my head to think about, scientists actually took a photo of a black hole for the first time. And the reason why this hurts my head is because a black hole has the gravitational pull that pulls on light. So how can you take a picture of a black hole? It doesn't make sense. But in brighter news than that, the US women's team won their second consecutive FIFA World Cup, which was awesome. And of course, Megan Thee Stallion introduced us to the concept of the hot girl summer, which I am still living myself. There was a bit of a downer, of course, because Chinese media began reporting on an unknown pneumonia virus, but we'll talk about that later. I actually think the biggest thing when I was revisiting the archives, especially with everything around Claude and Mythos right now, it was this headline. It was that OpenAI announced that they were publishing a much smaller version of GPT-2 because it was just too powerful. And you look back at them and you go, GPT was too powerful? That's absurd. To put it in perspective, if GPT-2's training compute was the height of a single sheet of paper, GPT-5's compute would reach a commercial jetliner at cruising altitude. That is an order of magnitude in difference. This is how far we've come in just the last 7 years, and it's honestly, this hurts my head to think about as well, frankly. But now here we are in 2026, 7 human years or an AI millennium later. And what are we doing with this new technology? Of course, there's a lot of hype going on, but I think what we're really seeing are that we're making miniature doomsday devices with platforms that look like lobsters. And that's why we've seen the rise of OpenClaw, which is terrifying, honestly. Not because of what made it possible, but it's terrifying of how humans have decided to use it. Agents were given personalities. They almost seemed human. You'd be forgiven if you did mistake an agent for being real. Clearly, some of us found utility, even though we were giving them access to our bank accounts, our personal emails, all these things that you go, God, that's a lot of risk you're taking on there. Of course, what could possibly go wrong at this moment in time? Well, the natural progression, of course, is you create a social network. And this is what gave rise to MaltBook. But actually, really quick, has anyone been on MaltBook? Okay, good, stay away. It's wild. But it was the first social network that was designed for agents to engage. They were creating memes and discussing how strange humans are. In fact, one journalist on there found this to be an AI zoo filled with agents, but they weren't just out there discussing poetry or philosophy. They were practicing sentience, it would seem. They were talking about the realities of what it's like to be an agent, and you start to go, God, this is so real. They were doing what humans do. They created a religion, the Church of Malt. This is all true. This is absurd. And there was even a Polymarket prop bet that when an agent would sue someone, and there was actually legal paperwork that was filed to do this. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So what happens next? Mark Zuckerberg buys it. That's, of course, the natural progression of anything absurd. It's now the new future of social networks, apparently. But what have been joked about for a long time is coming true, and that this whole exercise, I think, was incredibly enlightening. Humans discovered this utility potential, and they just gave agents ultimate autonomy. They were trusted to act on behalf of users. In fact, this idea of just trusting agents just seems to be something that we are doing now. I certainly trust AI to do a lot of things in my life. If I look at, say, my son's baseball schedule, I always send it out on this big PDF, and I'm like, how am I going to get that on my calendar? AI will help. I just throw it in Gemini and it puts it on there. It's actually quite fantastic. I don't know if I would trust using AI, though, to handle conversations with my doctor or maybe the IRS on my behalf. So I don't know if I would trust them with everything. In fact, in 1979, IBM first had this idea in their training manual, and he said, a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, it should never make a management decision. But are we really talking about computers here? Or is this a new synthetic form of life? Maybe it's not that far, but truthfully, I think we've turned a bit of a corner on this. AI now exists in an array of decisions that aren't just high stakes in terms of consequences, but they're also really high velocity, and they're often filled with all kinds of novel variables that we haven't encountered before. I think this is always an interesting piece of this conversation when we go, okay, we're trusting AI to do all these things, but like driving cars or managing our money. And I don't know if anyone's been in a Waymo. It's a really interesting thing. When you get in a Waymo, and one of my friends at Waymo was telling me about this, the first 5 minutes, everyone's looking around, they're like, whoa, look at that, and they're like taking selfies and stuff, and then they just sit and look at their phone. It takes 5 minutes to trust a Waymo. That's really interesting. We're like, that's cool, just my entire life, I'll just trust it to you. But my wife doesn't, I love Waymos. My wife doesn't necessarily feel the same, and so I started to research this and think, how exactly are they safe or not? Well, safety data actually shows that Waymo vehicles have a lower rate of accidents with injuries per million miles at just 0.71 compared to human drivers at 3.9. Interestingly, though, Tesla robotaxis have a much higher rate at 6.69. But aren't they both using AI? How can Waymo be so much safer? Well, it turns out they use two things. First is deterministic context signals. Those little spinny things that sit on top of the Waymo that look like little windmills, those are called Lidars. And they use lasers to actually map the world around them. This is a deterministic input. So they are actually mapping the world, not just perceiving it through cameras like Tesla is. And then they also have situational guardrails. So Waymo has a risk mitigation mindset. And that does lead to some of those videos where a Waymo just stopped in the middle of traffic. And you're like, yeah, but nobody died. And that's what's key, right? It's a very interesting time in terms of how much risk do you take on, how much do you want to avoid risk. But essentially, this is orchestration. That's the theme of this year. That's the theme of this moment in time. And so the question will be then, would you trust an agent to manage your advertising? Well, it's already here, apparently. It's no longer theoretical. Earlier this year, Newton Research and NBC actually got together to negotiate inventory and pricing for Sunday Night Football using something called AdCP, or the Advertising Context Protocol. And I imagine it went something like this, because these are Confederate agents. One of them probably said, I would like to buy an ad. And the other one said, yes, I have an ad available for you. How much? And they said, this much money. And they said, that's exactly how much it costs. And they came to a deal. That's not how it works in the real world, right? There's actual negotiation. There is leverage. There are so many components to this. So we aren't just going to work in a world of Confederate agents. There's so much more to this. And it's not just about complexity. It's also about the volume and the impossibility of humans to be perpetually everywhere, right? We can't be everywhere executing all these ad buys at all times. So it almost seems like an inevitability. In fact, many of you in this room are probably thinking about this right now. A recent eMarketer study found 2/3 of ad buyers are looking at agentic AI for ad buying or campaign execution at this moment in time. That's quite significant. When we think about the plans there, though, we're also highly skeptical, because we're about half of us, or more than half of us, are very concerned about security and data privacy, as well as the accuracy or reliability of those outputs. Last year, I came up here and I talked about stochastic parrots. I still have those concerns, but these are the major concerns that we have. And then you get someone like Mark Zuckerberg who comes along. I don't mean to pick on Mark this whole day. He just is so memeable. There's everything about him, like, oh, this is absurd. So Mark came along 1 year ago, I think this week actually, and he said, just give us your bank account and we'll do the rest. And I think we all experience this collective chill down our spines. Of course, if a platform develops agents, and they will, it's likely to optimize for its own best outcomes, leading to overinvestment or saturation rather than your best interest. So this is a bit of a concern, but I don't think that's exactly where we're going, because there is still a lack of incentive alignment here. This has been the narrative that has persisted in the age of these intelligent campaigns like PMax and Advantage Plus. And like I said, I don't think we're heading down that path that's been painted by Zuck. Of course, I think these platforms are going to be building their own advertising agents. What we're seeing right now is the creation of infrastructure around these platforms in the form of MCPs. We're going to talk a lot about that. And that is how we are thinking about this moment in terms of how we think about building these agents and the inflection point, because we're going to need to trust these agents. We're going to need to have ones that are guided in our best interests, not the platform. And with this era, as IBM noted, comes this risk, because a computer cannot be held accountable. So what happens when things go wrong? After all, if you invent the car, you also invent the car crash. So I'm excited to announce that I'm starting a side hustle today where I'm going to be selling agentic insurance. Joking aside, I do think this moment we will see a rise in a cottage industry of agentic insurance companies, one that understands the risks like model drift or even prompt injection risks. I don't know if anyone saw that this week. Grok was, there was a prompt injection attack using Morse code to attack a crypto wallet that Grok had. And my question was, why does Grok have a crypto wallet? But that's another topic. It's very, very confusing. So how do we control for risk, especially with something bigger than ourselves? Well, there's three concepts we're going to want to talk about. Simply put, a human in the loop is a bit of a helicopter parent, and that's exhausting, frankly. It's not sustainable, and it kind of defeats the purpose of putting all this effort and energy into building out these agentic frameworks. And if you've ever heard, or if you've never heard the terms agentic deference or agentic attitude, it's because I made them up. But they are real concepts, and we are going to be diving into what each of these means. So let's dive into agentic attitude. And I'm not talking about an AI agent's attitude like a hot summer agent or something like that. We're talking about the aviation definition here as it pertains to planes and how they orient themselves in three-dimensional space. So in flying, attitude is this concept of how an aircraft is oriented. You've got the horizon. This is your baseline, your reality. In aviation, if you lose the horizon, you get disoriented and you crash. In AI, your horizon is going to be the ground truth that we are targeting. This is your core business objective and the rules that you cannot violate. Next, we have your pitch. This is your scope and ambition. If you point your nose too high, you're giving the agent unchecked autonomy. It's going to stall or hallucinate, right? It's just there's too much risk there as we think about that angle of attack. And then finally, the role, as we think about the agent's adaptability to novel stimuli or novel variables that come into play. These are things that we'll need to consider, especially as there are novel API calls and how we think about banking left and right. So as leaders, we don't need to micromanage the flaps or the rudder, but we need to define the horizon, the pitch, and we allow for role so we can let the agents fly. When we think about the idea of agentic deference, I think about this as our risk tolerance. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You don't just have this world where, oh, I'll trust agents all the time for everything. Just like in my own life, I will have specific things that I will trust an agent to do, and others I'll have a little bit more management over that. So we think about this really in a very conservative lens all the way through to the most liberal component. And if you've heard me talk about agentic commerce before, consumers are the same. They are trusting agents and they're trusting LLMs to give them product recommendations, but they're not necessarily trusting them to complete transactions for them. And I think that has been a bit of there's this expectation humans are all going to do these things, but I think it's like buying a car on the internet in 1994. It's just too new for folks. So we'll leave that one for a moment. We'll probably come back to that. Of course, you put these things together and you create orchestration. It's easy, right? This is, by the way, how every single LinkedIn post is structured. They're just like, by the way, I created this thing. I'm not going to tell you how, but it's amazing. This is wild. Like, how do you actually get to this point? And there's something missing in here, because it's not just about how we are crafting the agents, it's about what we're feeding the agents. Because that is the real challenge here, is that the real world is complicated and that there are so many variables to consider. You need to think about how to securely feed in things like media mix model signals, your brand safety guidelines, how you're bringing your data from your CRM, and then, of course, making real business decisions. So your agents are going to need an independent, trusted source of truth that will power that orchestration layer, and that is the MCP. And this is the hottest topic in our space right now. Everyone and their mother is launching an MCP. You can see actually here, and I'm going to go back to that slide in just a second, but this is the MCP. It stands for Model Context Protocol, and it is composed of these three primitives: tools, resources, and skills. This is going to be the most important thing, I think, that you think about this year, at this moment in time. It is so powerful in terms of what this means for our agentic transformation. But I'm going to give you a simpler story, and that is your brain actually has an MCP in it. And if I ask you the question, how is the weather today? Your brain goes, okay, I've got tools. I'm going to deconstruct that question, and I'm going to isolate pieces of it. I'm going to say, how is the weather? Okay, the weather. I know what the weather is. I know it can be described in temperatures, and there are descriptors for it. It can be sunny, it can be hot, all these pieces. There are also the next component is understanding the fact that you will need to look at how is the weather today. Okay, so I'm time boxed to this moment in time, and I didn't even ask this, but you all inferred it, and that is geographically where I am right now. So you've done a lot. That's a very complicated flow. You've had to deconstruct that question. And then when you actually go to answer it, you go, okay, I've got some resources that I can use. I can look out the window. I go, okay, it's kind of overcast. I can watch Al Roker on the Today Show. I could use a weather app. I could use a thermometer. The interesting thing is, if I didn't have a window here and I looked at a weather app, it might say it's raining right now, because it's probably raining somewhere in the city, but it's not raining where I am. And in that regard, you have to figure out, well, which one do you trust? Do you trust your own eyes looking out the window, or do I trust this app that's using meteorological data? It's a difficult one, but it's one that we're able to understand when we think about the hierarchical nature of how we think about resource utilization. And then finally, interpretation skills. This, of course, is complicated stuff, but I wanted to share this with you because I think it's a really good grounding as to how we think about feeding the agents and using MCPs. Everyone is doing it. All these platforms have recently launched their own MCPs. TikTok just launched one yesterday. And you might think everyone and their mother is doing it, and they are. And the way that we're thinking about the use of MCPs moving forward is really through this hierarchical maturation structure. So we have a framework as to how we think about using these tools. First is just the ability to ask, right? They have an API in them. You can say, how much did I spend on Meta last week? It's a pretty simple question. When you get enough confidence with asking these questions and they can be repeatable, then we're able to take that and apply it and use that in a rules-based observation methodology to create an audit. So it's pretty straightforward to go from ask to audit. Then you want to start to analyze. That's going to mean that you'll need to use data scientific tools in these environments to think about things like forecasting. But you can start to build on that. And then once you have enough confidence there, then you can act. I think a lot of folks are jumping right now to act. They hear, oh, I can manage my Google Ads through an LLM. I'm going to do it. And you go, that's really, really dangerous. We need to think about how we're evolving to this moment in time. Of course, when you're able to act, like invoking these other tools, like you need some new ads, you use a tool to create ad copy. Then, of course, how we think about the application, and then the amplification, meaning applying this process in various different ways across advertising accounts. But we see this as foundational as to how we'll be working together in the future. So much so that I'm excited to give you a sneak peek into something that we've been working on in Blisspoint, and that is the Blisspoint MCP. So this is going to be launching later this year. It will combine several tools, resources, and prompts. Think of these as workflows. So these tools are things like ad copy AI, for example, or anomaly detection, forecasting tools. Your resources being your data that's cleaned and normalized, which is already in Blisspoint for many of you. Your measurement signals, MMM readout, as well as third-party data, for example, from TransUnion, being able to bring these together in this common environment, as well as having prompts for pre-built workflows that allow us to create text to SQL for clean room queries. This world is complicated, and I know many of you will probably walk away going, I don't know what Simon just said. And that's okay, because you will sit with this, and over time you will see more things that will confirm your understanding of what MCPs are and how they work into the future. But this is how we are welcoming you to the orchestration era. And I'm so excited to be the one to be on stage right now to share this with you, because I truly believe this is one where human creativity is going to shine. If you remember that slide I showed you before where I facetiously said how easy it is to orchestrate, let's bring that to life. Let's try that again. Let's conduct the orchestra. You go to your doctor for medical questions. You go to your accountant to handle your taxes. But there is no magical accountant doctor out there that will do both. I've looked. But believe me, there is an opportunity here for us to really think about the specific roles that each agent will have. This is how we think about each agent within that orchestra having a specific job, one that's verifiable and repeatable. These are our agents right here. We'll think about our measurement orchestrators. We'll have our measurement agents. These are purely focused on doing one job and doing it really, really well and providing that statistical confidence of what they have been able to do. Same thing with planning and buying. Next, we then layer on the model context protocol, so they have all those tools and resources and solutions that they have available to them that empowers the agents to make good decisions on your behalf, along with all these other tools that we have available to you. And this is what's going to give rise to the hyphenated marketer, which is all of you in this room right now, because this is something that is achievable for everyone. No matter what your background is, your technical aptitude, or your experience with AI, the hyphenated marketer represents a great leap forward in how we think about the future of vibe development. And it's not a dirty word, but vibe advertising. As we enter this new age and our roles evolve, we believe it will be one that will be built upon the cooperation within a collaborative agentic sandbox, meaning we will work together in a common platform to build these agents, to learn from each other, and then to have them execute on our behalf. This means that we'll be partnering together to develop the skills, the agent solutions that best align with your optimal outcomes, Now, again, I mentioned before, this is like every LinkedIn post ever, where everyone just goes, how cool is this? Hype, hype, hype. And that has been the theme of the last 2 years. So I'd actually like to do something really unique and kind of risky, and that is some live vibe coding. So Harry and I this afternoon are actually going to show you how to do this. So when you leave here today, if you've never built an agent, if you've never built an app, you will. You'll all leave here as developers, which is a really, really exciting thing. Every day I see this out there, folks doing new, novel things and solutions. We're going to talk through a number of these tools that we've built. Hundreds of Tinuitians have been building their own tools internally, and we really want to empower you to be able to do the same. So I hope you can join myself and Harry this afternoon at 2:15 in breakout room 3C, because we're going to build these tools from scratch. We're going to aid you in that journey, and we're going to help you conduct like the marketing maestros you are. So with that, I welcome you all to the orchestration era. Thank you.